This is John Mulligan. I'm at Search Engine Strategies New York, and it is day 3. I am with Brad Balfour, who is a blogger for the Huffington Post, and as well has his own content syndication vehicle called BMB Media. Brad, you are a writer.
Yes.
You write things online.
Absolutely. In fact, I completely transferred my activity from being a print journalist to being online because I feel online is far more the future and much better for me to reach out to an audience that I couldn't ever fathom getting in print.
Well, this is the right place to be then. So you've been hitting session after session, and I want to get the perspective of a writer who comes to a search conference that by and large speaks to business owners, but is always talking to business owners about how they can make better content and optimize that content. What does a person like you get out of a conference like this?
Well, for example, writing a headline. There are things that I didn't really realize, or maybe I understood it intuitively, but there are things you become incredibly sensitive to about just the order of the words in a headline. Mm-hmm. Because first of all, with the Huffington Post, when I blog there, the headline is what the URL is made from. So after you get past huffingtonpost.com, then the slash is whatever my headline is. If I don't put the right keywords there in the headline, I don't think I get as good a traffic result rather than writing a better headline. So one of the things I'm trying to do to brand my pieces in the Huffington Post, which I didn't think about before, is I always use Q&A and then a colon. Well, I don't necessarily use the colon for the URL, but I use the Q&A because that sort of brands me. And when you look down the landing page and you see everything there, it blurs. But when you see Q&A, you stop because it's like a bullet point. So I find I'm using that to my advantage.
So you're talking about a couple different things here. Then you've got making your headline more clickable because it pops right to the viewer, but you're also talking about making it more search friendly to the engines. Now, do the editors at the Huffington Post come through and tell you your article's not optimized enough, or do they just generally encourage you to optimize?
When you once you've been vetted and you've been given the entree into having the blog, you're pretty much on your own. It's a fairly autonomous experience, except that they do send you out guidelines or they do send you out advice because their attitude is we're making available this space. At the same time, you should do some work to help promote yourself, and in turn it promotes the Huffington Post. And it's great advice. So I've been doing a lot to optimize my own presence in the Huffington Post using, for example, social network. Right. I use my Facebook account, and I do a lot of face messaging with my content or replying to different when groups invite me, and I always reply with my Huffington Post. I say, "Oh, great, I'm interested," and then I say, "And by the way, check out my Huffington Post blog." So I'm doing their marketing, and they're doing the marketing for me. I found out that there's a Twitter tweet that goes out automatically through the Huffington Post, or I don't know how it's done, but I went and searched me on Twitter, which I don't have a Twitter account right now, and there's all this tweets of my content. So I was excited. So I'm really I realize how valuable the social media strategy is important, and they help encourage you and give you advice on how to best maximize your presence there.
Well, that makes sense for them. And you and I were having a conversation earlier. Sorry, about your own transition into the online space, right? As someone who's already adopted all of this social media, all of these social media tactics to get your presence out there more robustly, with all of the social media tracks that have been put forward in the last couple of days, what have you picked up?
Well, first of all, that you really have to stay ahead of the game to find out which social media tools are available or which ones you need to maximize. I wish I had it down like a science. I still have a lot more to do to exploit Delicious, Technorati, Dig, Read It. But I'm learning which ones are the key ones that everybody is using as optimization tools. Mm-hmm. One of the things, though, that I learned from this, and one of the things I'm going to really employ, although I think I've gotten the instinct down, is how to write my first paragraph, both for the value of strategizing myself within the environment of Huffington Post, but also for strategizing myself as it goes out into the search engines. And although some of it is, logical, the old journalism advice about getting, the first few sentences give you the real information. Sometimes when you employed other writing techniques, new journalism, you'd make it a little more personal, you'd have some funny story, then you'd no, when you're writing something for online and you want to be effective, you really want to get the point out, right? It's a movie, it's got this star, it's about this subject, and you want in those first 200 words, or that first, because you want it to help the meta tag, because you see what they draw on as reference when they're posting your little description, because they post a description within the site.
So do you find that humorous that you have these rules that you're taught in journalism schools, like the inverse pyramid, and generally the New York Times standard format, right?
Good thing I learned that. Good thing I learned that.
Right, and now you're a blogger, and then you realize that the search engines have built their standards around this old school, and so like where you thought there might be freedom and everyone's going willy-nilly, it actually makes sense to go, to be more Queen's English about it, as it were.
Yeah, well, let me just put it this way. My new journalism comes in the third paragraph or the fourth paragraph, not in the first two paragraphs now. I learned how. Actually, I always prided myself on being a very effective. My leads were effective in that way, where I tried to identify the quintessential theme of the film or the subject of the interview so that you understood what you were going to get into and then you wanted to read the meat of it. One of the things I do, which I believe is important for me to distinguish myself, is that I tend to run long interviews because I believe in duration as a key striking point for your popularity online now, because everybody has been told the advice, 250 words, 300 words, 350 words, 500 words, and frankly, people just click through and boom, they're in and out. They look at the first few sentences and they're gone, unless you give them some meat. And now the web really demands more meat because there's just so much buzzy stuff that you now have to, I think that will distinguish you, and I think that will set you apart. And that's one of the things I've really learned listening to a lot of the sessions here.
Well, thanks a lot.
Well, I hope that's helpful.
It is. News from the front line.
And you're going to subscribe to my blog. You're going to be clicking on. Oh, also, name your... I post, by the way, I post my own photos. I've learned how to post my own photos. I convert them through Blogger to HTML, and then I cut and paste them into, because it's a much faster way to do it for the Huffington Post. And I'm learning how to name my photos better. Mm-hmm. That's something I learned from, that is one very specific thing I learned from this event, is I've got to rename these photos better.
Well, we're taking out my smartphone, and once this turns off, I'm subscribing to Brad's feed. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Brad.
Thank you.
This is John Mulligan from Search Engine Strategies New York 2009, getting news directly from the front from the Huffington Post. Stay tuned for more.